Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm delighted to be talking today at the 2020 Global Empathy Conference. My topic is empathy and the necessity in today's globalized world. Way back in the 8th century BCE, Homer said, "Yet, taught by time, my heart has learned to glow for others' good and melt at others' woe." For hundreds of years, empathy has garnered much scholarly attention and discussion across many disciplines from philosophy and psychology to theology and education. Scholars, as well as teachers, clinicians, and the general public, have critically debated the topic of empathy, posing such questions as: are humans innately good or bad? What is the relationship between empathy and behavior? Do young children have the capacity for empathy? Can empathy be taught? What is empathy? It is a deep emotional intelligence that is closely connected to cultural competence. Empathy enables those who possess it to see the world through others' eyes and understand their unique perspectives. This merits the question: why do we consider empathy over other values? An answer could be as because of the monolithic group formerly known as the audience. The passive customer, the compliant patient, the couch potato are all relics of the pre digital past when communication was mostly a one way street from seller to buyer. Now, communication goes both ways. Today's multiple and highly vocal audiences demand to be heard, or they will take the business elsewhere. You need empathy to know who these audiences are and what they want. During the past few decades, the empathy construct has received considerable attention by psychologists and educators alike because of its association with positive behavior and psychological adjustment. Indeed, empathy has been identified by some as one of the most essential personality traits because it motivates helping and other pro social behaviors and inhibits aggressive behaviors. However, it is important to note that while research findings are generally in accord in demonstrating a significant and positive association between empathy and pro social behaviors, check it out in Eisenberg, etc., in 2006. This does not necessarily imply that empathy always results in pro social behavior or even the desire to respond in pro social ways. Our capacity for feeling empathy starts very early in life. Infants as young as 8 to 14 months old can show precursors to empathy, signs like displaying concern for a parent if they're hurt or upset. The older we get, the more we empathize. A recent study from the University of Munich in Germany found that children between the ages of 5 and 7 increasingly anticipate feelings of concern for other people. Teaching empathy doesn't just make kids more emotionally and socially competent, it can also help them to be more successful and functioning citizens in the future. A recent study from Duke University and Penn State in the USA followed over 750 people for 20 years and found those who were able to share and help other children in kindergarten were more likely to graduate from high school and have full time jobs. Empathetic children and adolescents are more likely to engage in positive social behaviors like sharing or helping others. They're also less likely to be antisocial and exhibit uncontrolled aggressive behaviors. That's a big reason why educators have been devoting more attention to empathy in recent years, integrating it more deeply into schools and curricula. And as Goldstein illustrates, some of these efforts are focusing on early childhood education. Indeed, research suggests that the sooner we learn to empathize, the better off we are in the long run. People exposed to empathy earlier in life have greater and long lasting emotional benefits than those exposed to it later, or not at all. One recent study suggests that children who are taught social and emotional skills as opposed to purely cognitive skills in preschool have better social skills and fewer behavioral problems compared with kids who don't experience that holistic classroom setting. Should we teach empathy to even the very youngest and more older students? Can we? That's the question. The past decade has witnessed a burgeoning interest in the empirical investigation of empathy. There are several reasons for this growing attention, such as the recent lethal school shootings in the US and elsewhere, school bullying, both topics which point to an empathy deficit in today's children and youth. Common to most of the extant definitions of empathy is the notion that empathy includes: one, an effective response, that is, feeling with another, and two, a distinction between self and other. Research has demonstrated that early at the age of 2, children show the cognitive capacity to interpret the physical and psychological states of others, and the emotional capacity to experience effectively the states of others, and also the behavioral repertoire that permits the possibility of trying to alleviate discomforts in others. Zahn Wexer and others in 1992 found that girls express more empathy than boys, but only for witnessed and not for caused distress. Martin Hoffman, one of the biggies who has actually done a lot of empirical research in this area in 1982 and 2000, has been acknowledged as being one of the first in the field to propose a four-level theoretical model that describes the development of empathetic distress from infancy to childhood. The four stages are: first stage, global empathy, which occurs between the ages of 0 and 12 months, with infants acting as though what they witnessed happened to the other happened to themselves. Second stage, egocentric empathy, between 1 to 2 years of age, in which the child can now be aware that it's the other person and not oneself who is in distress. Third stage, empathy for another's feeling, between ages of 3 and 8 years, wherein the child becomes more responsive to emotional cues from others. And the final stage, empathy for another's condition during late childhood and early adolescence, wherein the child is not able to have feelings of empathetic distress for an entire group or class of people. Example: homeless, poor, or oppressed. Hoffman proposed that improvement in young children's perspective taking is critical to their abilities to differentiate between their own and others' distress and to accurately understand others' emotional reactions. These skills are believed to foster empathy and sympathy and consequently more and higher quality pro social behavior. Further, Hoffman outlined 5 ways in which parents and or caregivers can promote empathy in young children. 1. Permit children to experience a wide range of emotions. Direct children to the internal states of others. Provide role taking, perspective taking opportunities across contexts. Give children lots of affection. And finally, be a role model by behaving in a pro social manner and verbalizing your empathetic feelings. We all know that Denmark is one of the happiest countries in the world. This is according to the UN's World Happiness Report, an important survey that since 2012 classifies the happiness of 155 countries in the world, and that for 7 years has placed Denmark among the top 3 happiest countries on a global level. The fact that teaching empathy has been made mandatory since 1993 in schools in Denmark is a factor that contributes to the happiness of that country. Empathy helps build relationships, prevent bullying, and succeed at work. It promotes the growth of leaders, entrepreneurs, and managers. Empathetic teenagers tend to be more successful because they are more oriented towards the goals compared to their more narcissistic peers. In Danish schools, an hour a week is dedicated to the Klassens Tid, an empathy lessons for students aged 6 to 16 years. It is a fundamental part of the Danish curriculum. The hour of empathy is as important as the time spent, for example, on English or mathematics. During the Klassens Tid, students discuss their problems, either related to school or not, and the whole class, together with the teacher, tries to find a solution based on real listening and understanding. If there are no problems to discuss, children are simply spent the time together relaxing and enjoying Haigi, a word and also a verb and an adjective which cannot be translated literally since it's a phenomenon closely related to the Danish culture. Haigi could be defined as intentionally created intimacy in a country where it gets dark very early in the year. It rains, it's gray. Haigi means bringing light, warmth, and friendship, creating a shared, welcoming, and intimate atmosphere. It is a fundamental concept for the Danish sense of well being. When children play doctors or house back at home when they're very young, they're actually solving problems in character and take empathy for a test drive. Dorothy Singer, a researcher at Yale University, believes this helps kids to learn how to cope with feelings, how to bring the large, confusing world into a small, manageable size, and how to become socially adept as they share, take turns, and cooperate with each other. In order to advance the science and practice of school based promotion of empathy, pro social responding, and other related processes, a direction for future research is to examine how basic and applied can be better integrated into the development and implementation of universal classroom based programs that promote empathy and pro social responding in school aged children. In conclusion, let me state again by talking about Martin Hoffman, who in 1981 stated, empathy may be uniquely well suited for bridging the gap between egoism and altruism, since it has the property of transforming another person's misfortune into one's own feeling of distress. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Thank you very much. Let me once again thank the organizers of this conference 2020 on global empathy. I'm very, very indebted to them for having allowed me to deliver this talk. Thank you, and a very good afternoon to all of you.